afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Lee Alexander, and I'm with Priority Metrics Group. We are glad that you could join us for the Rapid Innovation webinar today. This is going to be a really interesting topic. Just as a little bit of background really quick, this is the third webinar in our quarterly webinar schedule for 2015. We have split a few more topics in there as well, but all the recordings to our previous webinars from the year, and I believe last year as well, are available on the Priority Metrics Group website. That is www.pmgco.com under the Resources tab. You can also register for our next webinar on creating a unique business position, which is coming up in December, and you'll see the registration link for that at the top of the page. Our Rapid Innovation is going to consist of roughly a 40-minute presentation. If you do have any questions during the presentation, we would be more than happy to answer those for you. You can put those in the chat box and submit them electronically. If you're in full screen mode, you can hover your mouse over the top of the screen to access the chat box. If you're not in full screen mode, you'll see the chat box option on the right sidebar. We'll try to get to all questions towards the end of the presentation. At this time, I've introduced you our speaker. Charlie is a principal at Priority Metrics Group. He has a bachelor's degree from Princeton University, and Charlie's expertise ranges from market assessments to strategic planning and, of course, rapid innovation, which he will be presenting on today. I'll let him introduce the topic in more detail because, alas, he is the expert. And just as a quick reminder, a recording of this webinar will be available on the website as well if you'd like to go back and review anything. At this time, I'm going to turn the show over to him.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks, everybody, for taking time out of their busy Tuesdays talking about rapid innovation. I'm sure you're all wondering what rapid innovation is, and hopefully by the end of the 40 minutes or so, although I don't think I've ever made a presentation in 40 minutes, I'll try to hurry because there's a lot of information here, and hopefully you'll find it very useful in the things you may currently have in place or some of the innovation processes that you have in place. But as part of the agenda, a quick introduction of who PMG is, and get right into the rapid innovation process, which is, we call it an outcome-driven and out-in approach. And that'll take up the bulk of the 40 minutes, and then some lessons learned through this whole process that you'll see was half years on an innovation team actually perfecting this process. So I think there's some valuable lessons learned in that 3.5 years that I can share with you that you'll find interesting and valuable. Our mission really is to identify and capture profitable growth. Obviously, innovation is a way to do that, and we've been in business for over 20 years, helping companies grow, and committed to that. And hopefully, we do a good job at that. We're focused on B2B. Probably 5% of our work in the B2B space. We do B2C, although we do if it supports the B2B efforts. We operate in markets. We really don't have a specialty per se. We are global. And what's a little unique about us, I guess, is all the partners they do have a corporate marketing background. So it's come from a corporate environment. So we really have a good idea of what companies are looking for relative to growth and what their needs are relative to market research in helping them grow. And as I said, we're global in scope, and we have a great list of clients, which I'll briefly share with you. Again, this is kind of a sample of some of the clients we do have. I've worked with on a project basis as well as an ongoing basis with some of the clients you see here. So that, I will get to the subject. That's it, the innovation challenge, the challenge that was put in front of us, and some of the results that we had relative to our innovation challenge. We talk a little more about the process and how we attack the challenge, and then lessons learned. First, we got into this. You might ask, how does a marketing research firm get innovation? Well, we were approached by a Fortune 100 company to develop an innovation process for a newly formed corporate innovation team. And we created a process based on they described what they were looking for and their needs. And our initial process was accepted by the team and adopted by the corporate team. The initial scope was I was to spend 100% of my time for 16 weeks in seeing the process as well as monitoring the process during that 16-week period. In reality, I was there for 3.5 years, embedded in the team, so I learned a heck of a lot. It's like going to graduate school for innovation. I looked at it. So hopefully I'll be able to share with you, again, the lessons learned in the process that we developed both initially and along the way, we improved it to help you your innovation efforts. So if you're just staying with a team or you have already developed a team, I think there's a lot of nuggets in here that hopefully will be beneficial. And kind of the, I guess, the premise that we that preceded the process and that we wrapped the process around was we identify growth opportunities in new and adjacent existing markets as well as white space that either existing or technologies for this company. So needless to say, it was very wide open. As you know, white space, adjacent, whether the current technology there or could purchase or acquire the technology didn't matter. They just wanted growth. The real challenge was they would have they want a 16-week period, 2 leads generated in those 16 weeks, 3 opportunities that are specifically identified. Each opportunity had to have a $30 million exit rate for revenue after 5th year and a minimum 40% margin. So we had a really easy challenge there to write this process around. So with that, we went to the drawing table and we came up with share the kind of the high-level premise of the process, and then I'll get very specific with the process. First, being market researchers, we like to start with need and then develop a solution. So it's very outcome-driven. So the concept was to find specific needs in which we can deliver a better outcome, and the greater the amount of the measurable improvement of that outcome, or the better the improvement relative to value, the greater the value of the innovation. So the whole concept was to understand, uncover, let's say, needs in whatever area we studied, and I'll give you an idea of how we narrowed that down to where we were going to try to date. Understand the needs, understand the financial impact of solutions around those needs, and then create innovations that solve those problems, and hopefully, eventually, where it's lower cost, et cetera, that you can really attach a value to. So that's kind of the high-level premise of the test. So the advantage of this, we felt of this outcome-driven framework, it identifies underlying customer value drivers. So we really understood needs and values, and we were rather of solving those problems. And a lot of, I guess, inside-out innovation. Yours at the innovation efforts were focused and a clear articulation of the measured value. So we knew there were benefits associated with the innovations that we were coming up with. So they would be typically pulled or driven by the market. The mean, and some of this was inherited. Others of it we created, and a lot of it was done by benchmarking other teams and other companies that had created these teams. The team was self-directed. It was disciplined, and you'll see you need multiple disciplines in a team like this. It's marketing, engineering, material science, et cetera. Those are the challenges with understanding some of the needs and understanding some of what can use solutions. Individuals energized by personal interaction. We live together day to day in cubicles right next to each other for 3 years. So you have to be energized by personal interaction because you're in a personal interaction activity every day, all day. Comes ambiguity, and you'll see why when we get into the process. This is not cut and dry in terms of understanding and uncovering needs, understanding and uncovering potential solutions. Very ambiguous space, and quite honestly, not everybody is comfortable with ambiguity, so that's critical. Oriented, we had a line and we drove to that deadline, and we goals in front of us 24 hours a day. Team is a must because this is an unusual situation or unusual to be put in a room together with 6 other people that you interact with every day is not your normal day at work. Team training, to be self-directed and to live together, so to speak, was a must. And we really think that got the team off to a great start. Environment, we were separated from the normal business activity, actually away from the corporate offices in our own space. That way we wouldn't be brought into the tyranny of the day, so to speak, and it allowed us to stay very, very focused. In terms of results, what we accomplished in those 3.5 years, again, the team is still ongoing. However, I'm no longer on the team. The idea, our goal is to fill that pipeline with those type of opportunities like I outlined earlier in terms of margin as well as exit rate in terms of revenue. The pipeline when we started, 3 years later, this is what we added to the pipeline. So you can see, I would say we're successful. We're going to talk later about some other areas that I thought we could improve or there were some issues, but we were able to fill the pipeline with opportunities that were predefined in the definition that you saw earlier. So the process, I'll outline that now. This is essentially the process we came up with. The outside in with a transition period in the center or a transition steps in the center. So we developed, and just to kind of go down the list, develop innovation strategy, critical. We'll go over each of these very quickly in the rest of the presentation. So you'll get a little taste of what all these mean. Align the team to the strategy, identify the markets to assess, uncover unmet needs and outcomes, and group these unmet needs, and then we shift to develop a solution or at least develop concepts for solutions. Then grow, fit and attractiveness, and then we begin prototyping, sizing the market, narrowing, creating a market plan, then hand off to the business unit. So that's outside in, and it's about relative to the 16 weeks, about 8 or so in each area. So it's about split in the center, 8 weeks and 8 weeks, or maybe 6 and 6 with 2 weeks or 4 weeks in the center there. So it's about equally spaced between the outside and the inside relative to where we spent our time. So a strategy, critical. Those things are must-haves. The innovation strategy has to be aligned with the company's strategic direction. Again, why that will better define that, but be going in the same direction, especially white space. If our goal was innovation no matter where, so it's revenue, but at the same token, to keep that white space consistent or white space innovation consistent with strategic direction was a challenge, and I'll show you a little bit of how we did that. It's got to be supported by senior management because you are very, very different, invent different space, very different and unique innovations that we actually put in the pipeline. It has to be supported by senior management. We also think it's important also up front to define the sandbox. Ours was primarily defined as white space, but at the same time, over time, we brought it closer to home, as I'll discuss later. Became more adjacent, and at times became more incremental innovation relative to the business units. But I think it's important to have everyone understand where they can develop and where they can't develop relative to kind of the spectrum of white space to incremental improvements. Team charter and deliverables, clear definition of purpose and deliverables is critical for a team. They have to know where they're going. They have to have that carrot to understand, or that light at the end of the tunnel to understand where they're going to, when successful. And having members in the same page, the end of the process, agree on milestones and deliverables and dates etched in stone. Those are kind of the critical pieces that allowed us to go from really soup to nuts in weeks, because it was a fast process and we had milestones built in that we had to reach, and everybody was on the same page. So Little said, identify the markets to assess and align them with strategy. This is an example of aligning with strategy because it's not as apparent every time in terms of what you work on and if that is aligned with strategy. But to give you an idea, this is kind of we did actually the strategic plan of a company, and we worked with that strategic plan. No one did it for us. We decided to do it ourselves. So just to get an idea, the whole concept or strategic direction of the company had to do with health and wellness, the food supply, and the waste reduction within the food supply area. So one of the areas that you can see as an outgrowth of that is obviously, or aligned with that, is food safety. Okay, what is in food safety? You have protein, raw protein, processed foods, fruits and vegetables, and then take it a step further, we had raw poultry. So you can see those are areas that we felt just one branch of food safety that felt comfortable innovating in. So that we actually picked was raw poultry, an area to innovate, and you'll see that a little bit in a little deeper dive in the presentation. But that's how we decided to go about making sure that where we innovate was aligned with the company strategy. And it could create this map for fruits and vegetables, processed foods, cold chain. There's more than food safety, all food supply. So there's a lot of areas that this opens up for innovation. But the type of map, at least you're assured that you're aligned with the overall company strategy. So how do you take this deeper dive? Well, just to kind of take where do you begin? Maybe that's a better question. So now that we've kind of mapped out, it makes sense, and it's looking at raw poultry is aligned with the corporate strategy. We took a look. Okay, we included in raw poultry. This is only one tree or one branch that we went down. There was multiple, but this again clarifies where you need to look and what you need to begin. You need to uncover unmet needs. From a raw poultry standpoint, we have hatcheries, we have grow out, transportation, processing, packaging, cold chain, retail, wholesale, restaurant. All those touch raw poultry. So back this onion, you almost have to look at each one of these, which we did. In many cases, we visited these locations, visited companies that were expertise in all these areas, and we essentially performed in the map below, which is, like, for example, identify and understand key processes, assess process and conduct in-depth interviews, identify process KPIs, what are they measuring in each of the processes, and you can see under that some of the questions and things that we did relative to each of those steps. So kind of logically peel away the onion, just relative to strategy and each of those specific areas, and then go into those areas with a purpose of understanding the processes, very specific processes, and understanding the needs and the issues within each of those processes. So this is kind of the foundation of the needs approach. All this time we're figuring out where's the best place to look, and then areas that we need to uncover these unmet needs. The takeaway in this whole poultry concept is this is the process plant. Again, one this tree. The process plant, we just to map that process, you go from slaughtering, maceration, cutting, mixing, forming, frying, cooking, packaging. So you have all these elements of the supply chain within the plant, and with jobs to be done, in each of those areas, outcomes. What were the key metrics that they were paying attention to at plant management level, as well as the level each of the areas. What were they measuring and monitoring in each of those specific areas, and then issues, concerns, and just to give you a highlight of everything saw in there. We went in with some preconceptions. Most of those were shattered. At the end of the day, the issue and the concern was had yield loss of 4% in the processing. We found that was pretty typical in the raw poultry market, or the raw poultry vertical. So 4% yield loss is a huge issue. And you can imagine that the dollars, the amount of dollars that go through that plan on an annual basis, you could affect that or positively affect that yield loss by 0.1%, 0.5%. It's huge dollars. So then cover measurable impacts that if you could solve some of these problems that drive that yield loss, and they're in the KPMs, speed of the process, yield, rework, et cetera. We're beginning to still peel away that onion to get to those things that really drive that yield loss. That was a big issue. And you got the other branches, there were big issues in all the branches, but I just wanted to kind of highlight this particular branch and give you a feel for how we dug into the weeds to find some critical concerns and cost issues. So in grow out houses, we've seen eggs being hatched. We've seen all these things. We've talked to transportation people. We understand the cold chain issues and how much is lost in the cold chain and transportation. So we bring needs to the wall, so to speak. All those. This is actually a picture of the wall we used. We cluster needs based on common elements. And we let those define themselves. Cluster, we give each cluster a name or a heading. It could be yield loss, for example, which you just saw. It could be transportation costs. It could be lots of different heading areas. So you have a heading area and maybe 15 or 20 specific needs under each of those headings. And then we categorize as many times as we can, and common areas become evident in what you need to spend your time. It's very obvious. Maybe you have 8 or 10 areas that really, really have some issues that you can begin to attack. So that's uncovering and grouping of the needs. This is a little bit of an eye chart, and I'm going to shift away from poultry, but this is something else we worked on during the 16 weeks. But to give you an idea, once we have those needs, we put them in a spreadsheet, and see those, the green and the red, those are the actual, the very specific needs on the right-hand side. The colors represent the clusters, and we took to those individual needs as well as the clusters, and begin to transition from need to product concept. Transition, once we've discovered needs, we turn into that product concept. So to give you an idea, this was body armor. This one is lighter body armor, the first yellow piece, and the next yellow is stronger body armor, higher caliber ballistics. So you have light weighting and you have improved. The concept was material replacement ballistic vests. Could we come up with a material replacement? Same thing below. SAPI plates that we looked at were they actually were deteriorating once they hit oil or gas. We thought maybe a protective wrap for various layers, SAPI plates as well as ballistic vests. So protective layers so they wouldn't deteriorate. So this is, again, kind of a feel for how we began to transition from identified need to product concepts to solutions. Our goal with these needs, which we had, was create, and you can see at the top of the slide, 200 or more product concepts. We did our best to get to 200 ideas on various areas. So hopefully after this step, we had 200 somewhat viable product concepts. Product concepts. Then the idea is, how do you narrow them? So our narrowing process was to take those 200. Our goal was to get to around 50. So what we do is, in this particular slide, we have a list of all the steps that we created. And based on our 6 or so out in the field, we rate them on a kind of a fit, attractiveness, 5 scale. And we did individually. So you see the team members in the vertical. We eat this individually, then we come back together. And any one of those that we have more than a two-digit difference, for example, you see the 2 highlighted in yellow, we have 5s and 4s and 2s. Talk about each of those, and we decide whether that 2 should be a 4 4, or those 5s and 4s should be 3s and 2s. So we try to bring those closer together in terms of what our feeling is in fit and attractiveness. So, and then once we do that, we pull an average, and we 50. You can see on the right-hand side. So we top 50 in the highest average score relative to fit and attractiveness. And so that would mean it's not very scientific, but at the token, you know, we have to narrow quickly, and we can't study, you know, 100+ ideas. We can't ad nausea, so we quickly narrow those down to 50 in this matter. 50. The idea, the concept is narrowing as fast as you can, narrowing intelligently. Goes up and assign them to each team member, which is approximately, if you have 5 or 6 team members, approximately per, and you conduct additional research. So you take 50 and do a deeper dive, essentially. So for confirmation of the value proposition, you think there's value because of the need. So we make sure that's the case. Understand financial benefits to the customer, to those, high-level estimate of market potential. How big is this? Is it small, medium? Again, nothing perfect, but some kind of a level of potential. Existing competitive products, fit strategy, and anything the initial research and discussions that we had may have overlooked. So each presents their set, and then the set we concepts to move to the next stage. So how do we do that? We actually voted on it and got 12 after 50. It was vote. So we have 8 to 12 what we feel are the best. And time to deeper dive. Then is we do a deeper dive on fit and attractiveness. And what we case attractiveness, for example, is market attractiveness. Its components are market size, growth, market development, level of need, stability. What else? Industry competition. So we elements, and if you notice, they're weighted 15, 10, 15. So we weight them relative to their importance, and then essentially give them a score. Now, we did this overnight. We researched these 8 to 12 for another week or so. Then we come back and we assign some metrics, some numbers on each of those fit and attractiveness categories. And our goal, just to give you an idea on the next slide too, those categories are very defined. For the level of unmet need, that's at 20%. And we have definitions of what is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We do every one of those little sections on the fit and attractiveness scale. So we really get a good feel, going back to the previous slide, we can get a good feel for each of those numbers and what they mean. So with as well as a lot of discussion around whether it's a 2, 3, 4, or 5, we felt pretty confident based on our research that we have a pretty good understanding of the attractiveness as well as the fit. Potential products or solutions. From this, essentially try to put those, and we are in the attractiveness matrix, which is not too uncommon to a lot of processes. And quadrants, if it's a high fit, low attractiveness, it's explore. High attractiveness, pursue. Low attractiveness, abandon or pass, and then another explore with high attractiveness, low fit. As you can see, these are ideas that we mapped. We were able to eliminate at least 3. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that somewhat attractive. So we decided to move these 7 forward. So these 7s, and we study all of our numbers, make sure you feel good about it, tie up any loose ends. If there's any gaps in research, we try to research them a little deeper. we also try to prototype. Again, it's a solution, idea one thing, but to be able to take it to engineers now, and if they're able to come up with any idea, prototypes of these ideas that we have, to assure that they're doable. And this gives you an idea of the extent of some of the prototyping. It's actually made. Others were really theorized. This is one that was theorized. It was this was for incontinence. It was using some materials in different material layers for in its diaper. Funny story about this: we decided to move forward with this, and the patenting process, someone beat us to the patent by 2 weeks. This concept. So the good news, I think we had a good idea. The bad news is someone did it by 2 weeks. So this is the kind of I guess depth that we go to understand if the actual solution could be created from a product standpoint. To make we're right on the market size and market potential, because we're getting to the final. We were 7. We need 3. We deeper dive of the market on each of 7 products, and this gives you an idea. Again, this is another product. This is a mulch film that we look at. So we really try to understand the potential growth in the market of product. What's going, what percentage we think we can take of the market based on our value proposition, based pricing, etc. That gives you an idea of the depth at which we looked at this, as well as we get down pricing, we get down to cost per pound, we get down to sales, because we have to assure that it's got margin potential of 40%. Again, that new up there in the red, that is based on calculated labor savings. So we did a value proposition that we actually used the labor savings in creating the price. So needs-based solution as well as needs-based value pricing. So which we took each of those 7 concepts, a solution standpoint as well as a sales standpoint and market standpoint. We had that work done. We actually redid the attractiveness fit matrix just to make sure that any new information was included. And you can see once you do that third deep dive, you can see took place in the map. For example, went up all the way to one of the top 3. I went up to the top 3. I think it was idea 1 so you can some of the areas. So the assessment did reposition some of these. So this is our last cut. So the last top 3 ideas, which if you back to the first one of the slides, we now know that it meets the criteria of Hertz in terms of margin, as well as market size in terms of 30 million after the first 5 years. So all was assessed for those. So really we had a good feel for the fact that there's a need that creates the revenue. The market size was large enough to create the revenue. Our prototyping concepts were support our margin. So everything was in place. Really just made sense relative to market needs. Probably our 15th week or so at this point. Plan the last week. Most of this information we already have. It's just it falls into the template really to make sure we caught everything, as well as we could tell a story, so to speak, about market opportunity, concept design. So everything that we researched during those 16 weeks on those 3 items, and we created a marketing plan that includes everything we looked at from we think it's the needs there, value proposition, the market size, the value chain, the entry strategy, competitive landscape. And here it's just putting all that we've discovered together in one. We did the products. The outside, kind of the outside-in approach, outcome-driven 16 process. I think there's at least 5 or 6, 8 of these 16 weeks, and I don't think any went over. So had the process pretty of timing as well as deliverable. I have slides of lessons learned. It wasn't as easy as it seems, I guess. We're seeing the presentation, some of the must-haves and some of the hurdles that we had to face during those 3.5 years. One was the concept of why and how most innovation is done. There was a rate from the driven. At the bottom 3 on that triangle, technology push. That's fairly typical in companies where they have a technology and try to find a market for it. Differentiate with this technology. We just found that wasn't as successful on a percentage basis as what we call strategic-driven approach, which is the market-driven approach that's at the top. Changes in regulations, we have to develop something new, we have to change something. That's typically fairly successful. In many cases, if they don't succeed, they're not going to be in business, but also very painful. It's a reactive approach versus a proactive approach. And we saw fairly frequently is expanded a customer request. The customer might want something that may be unique and different that could lead to innovation. However, you don't know, does the market need it or is it customer specific? And that's hit or miss. And a lot of time is spent on those in many cases. So we found through the years is this whole proactive, needs-driven, strategic innovation was the best, or I did have the best success rate relative to creating viable products. Culture. You can't talk about innovation without talking about culture. There's something that I, on a fairly frequent basis. Having worked with businesses for 20 years, it's pretty common. There's a lot of cultural they just are difficult to change. But I would say, in going into any innovation process, team, et cetera, you really have to have or to align a culture of innovation away from having an innovation strategy. How is it white space? Is it adjacencies? You really do have to have a strategy. Right? You really have to have an infrastructure for innovation. You have executive support. You have to have operational support. Because you're churning out innovation. What happens to that innovation or those concepts once it leaves the team? They have to be picked up within the culture of the businesses. So it's easier to have those aligned because if they're not, in many cases they die on the vine. Orientation for innovation, the whole well-defined deliverables, strict timetable, attention to this culture of market search and understanding the markets is critical to have market-driven innovation. And finally, implementation. Before you have a good idea who's going to sell it, what R&D support are you going to get, and how are you going to monetize these innovations? Because our experience, the innovation is almost the easy part. The whole alignment of the organizations that you're handing these off to have to be in sync to make it happen. Excuse me. So that is a presentation on rapid innovation. Questions? Lee, how should they handle questions?
Right now would be a great time to submit those through the chat box. If you can either hover over the top of your screen and that option will be there, or it should be part of the on the right-hand side of your screen. We do have a few here that have come in privately. One is, with this process, are you ever concerned that you leave some good ideas behind?
Concern, yes. Real concern, no. Especially if you're trying to push it along quickly, and the reason we try to push things along quickly is many innovation teams they went on forever. They studied, and you'd be looking at things a year later. So we really try to push the envelope in terms of speed. And the good news is they'd be left behind, but they're still there. I mean, we did document it, but we really looked at it. Really felt that the three we had, if they weren't the three best, they were awfully good. So I guess we looked at the positive versus the negative. So we were very comfortable typically with the three that resulted, but at this time we didn't necessarily lose those others. They were captured, and in many cases they would be handed off, or a fleece would be handed off to members within the organization.
Okay. One here is, what would you say is the biggest challenge for creating an innovation team?
I slide the culture, and creating a team and having it successful. I think the top level of management has to be ready for it. They have to drive it. Excuse me, and it has to be aligned with the corporate strategy, and everybody needs to be behind it. If you don't, I'm saying it won't succeed, but it certainly could be painful. And so I would say that creating that innovation culture is the biggest thing.
Okay. I think we did fairly well on time, but in respect for everyone's time for today, we're going to end of the presentation. If you have any additional questions regarding innovation or market research in general, please feel free to contact us. I believe there was contact information on the bottom of all of the reminder emails. But if you want to contact me, my email address islalexander@pmgco.com, as in Priority Metrics Group Company.com. I'd be more than happy to direct any of those questions for you. We'd like to thank you all for your participation in today's webinar. Just as a quick reminder, again, there will be a recording of the presentation on the PMG website, and that is www.pmgco.com. And we appreciate your attendance, and that will conclude our presentation for today.